Good morning, everyone. My name is Tracy Nyer, and I'm with the Virginia Small Business Development Center. Today's webinar, SWaM Certification eVA Registration, is one of our educational offerings and is being brought to you by the Shenandoah Valley Small Business Development Center. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia SBDC is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one consulting services are available at no charge. For more information or to schedule an appointment, reach out to your local office, and if you're not sure where that is, you can find a listing on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. We are recording today's presentation and will be posted on our website after the session. Because there are so many participants in today's session, you're muted. So if you'll use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, our presenter will answer questions at the end of the session. Today's presenter is Courtney Mustin, the Regional Business Service Manager covering the Central West region of the Commonwealth for the Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity. She works with startups and emerging companies, as well as established small businesses, to implement growth and development by teaching them how to conduct business with the Virginia state and local agencies, which require their particular goods and services, and also partnering with other entities to cover a vast array of topics to help small businesses succeed. Courtney is also, she's been employed by the Commonwealth for 17 years and is a former business owner. Without further ado, here's Courtney.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Tracy, and thank you to the Shenandoah Valley Small Business Development Center for having me. Ordinarily, I like to see people, so this is a little different this morning. But I welcome everyone. How many people have we got on the line now, Tracy?
We have 90 people, 91.
Woo, my goodness. Well, I'm honored to be among you. The first thing I'd like to do is ask how many of you are SWaM certified at present? And if you would just give me Tracy, if you'd give me a number, that would be helpful. And the other one is, are you registered in eVA? And some of you may well not know what eVA is. That's what I'm going to cover this morning. But I'd just like to have a feel for how many people are familiar with the SWaM certification process and eVA registration before I get started. And while you all are answering that question, I would also like to mention, which I'm going to do a couple of times throughout the session, that Virginia was endowed with $70 million of grant money from the federal government. And this is now being deployed from a grant called Rebuild Virginia. And it's to help small businesses that were directly impacted by the COVID pandemic. So it's highly specific. I will say that. It's highly specific in the criteria which make you eligible. But basically, it's for anyone such as restaurants, bars, personal grooming places, gymnasiums, fitness centers that had to close down immediately. And so you're eligible to get up to 3 months of your average monthly expenses, which are covered. And those expenses are very specific as well. So I encourage you, I put in the chat the website for the fact sheet. It's a one-page sheet, and it spells out exactly what makes you eligible. Now, I will say we need to deploy this money by December 31st of this year, and to date we've only deployed about $2 million. So there's quite a bit left. But if you received any sort of federal money in the past, such as the PPP loan or the EIDL loan or the PUA unemployment subsidy, then you're not eligible. If you've gotten any grant money, you will not, from the federal government, you will not be eligible for this. But I highly recommend that you go on to the website and read the sheet that gives you the eligibility criteria, tells you what expenses are covered, and it also tells you what materials you need to submit an application. Okay. Tracy, have you gotten any sort
I
of feel
have.
for?
Yep. So we have 7 people out, so about 8% that are SWaM certified, and
Okay.
24 that are registered in eVA. So about 28% of eVA registration.
Okay, great. Well, that gives me some idea. What I'd like to do is talk a little bit. I'm very informal. I do have a PowerPoint, and you'll get that PowerPoint sent to you. And I'm going to cover the points in the PowerPoint. However, right now, what I'd like to do is give you a feel for how you do business with the state. There are 2 things as a small business, well, as any sort of business. There's one thing you have to do, and that is you have to register in eVA. eVA is, let me just put that up on the screen. Can you see that, Tracy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So eVA is little e for electronic, capital V, capital A, which of course is the abbreviation for Virginia. And this is the electronic Virginia marketplace. So if you want to do any business with any state agency, a vendor must be registered in eVA. They cannot issue you an order. They cannot issue you a contract. They cannot pay you unless you're registered in eVA. And this is true too for several, well, when I say several, it's over 900 local government agencies as well. Local meaning cities, towns, counties. So many cities, towns, and counties throughout Virginia use eVA as their marketplace for many of their procurements. So the first thing you're going to want to do is register in eVA if you have not. Now, the heart of registering in eVA, and here's a button right here on the website that says register now. I don't know if I'm live or not. I guess I am. Yeah, it's taking a long time. And it does sometimes take a long time. So this takes you to a screen, and you're not a buyer, of course, you're a vendor. So you're going to go over to the right-hand side for vendor registration. And there is a step-by-step registration guide, and I highly recommend that if you don't want to print it out, at least you look at it and read it before you sit down. This is a fairly straightforward process, but there are certain things. Of course, you're going to know your company name. You might or might not have your federal tax ID by memory, your addresses and contact information. But number 4 is the heart of registering in eVA. Commodity codes describe to buyers what you sell, whether it's goods or services or both. Now, when you, and I'll show you how to look these up, but when you have your registration, if you don't have commodity codes, and you can, well, you know what? I think they have made it mandatory now that you have to have at least one code. But for many years, you didn't have to have any codes. And if you registered in eVA and didn't have any codes, you weren't on anybody's radar screen because everything is predicated on these commodity codes. So when you register in eVA, you want to do your best to get the correct codes for what it is you buy and sell. I must say this is a very generalized coding system. It's called the National NIGP. You'll see right here, NIGP code lookup. That's National Institute of Governmental Purchasing. So there is an association which maintains a standardized coding book that many states use, much like the federal government uses NAICS codes. So it's standardized, and Virginia uses a 6-digit code system. And those codes tell a buyer, when a buyer goes in to post a solicitation in eVA, which is much like putting an ad in the paper saying, I need this product or this service, they must enter a code. Well, if you have that same code in your profile, you're going to get an email to the email address you put in up here as one of your contacts that says, eVA has just posted a solicitation you might want to look at. Go into your eVA account and look at this. So you can see it's very important not just to find a code that kind of sort of sounds like what you do. You want to be very specific if you can be. However, as I said, it's a standardized and pretty general coding system. So it's an art, not a science. There is not a one-to-one correlation with every good or every service that's sold that says I can go to the book and find exactly what I do. So you have to really tweak those codes. And I'll show you a couple of different ways that you can go in and get the codes. But I can tell you this, if you register in eVA and you don't spend the time to get at least 2 or 3 or 5 commodity codes that cover the kinds of goods and services you sell, you might as well have not gone to the effort, because you're never going to get hits on things that are entered by buyers. And you're also, if anyone else is looking to partner with you, everything is done on these codes. So you want to be specific about what it is, describing what it is you buy and sell. And let me say, I'm going to say this a few times, but let me say right now, if you have a service business, that is, you're not selling any tangible products, you can't feel them, touch them, smell them, you can't order it online, you can't walk into a store and find it on a shelf. If you're a service-oriented business, such as a janitorial service or a lawn care service or an HVAC service, you might bring air conditioners to install on a job, but you're not selling air conditioners off the shelf. Every service-oriented business is going to have codes that always begin with the digit 9. We had the codes start with the digit 0 and go up to 9. 0 to 8, if it starts with any digit 0 to 8, it's going to be a product. As I say, something you can order, go into a store and pick off the shelf, call someone and order. If it's a service, it's going to start with the digit 9. So once you get these things in hand, you can sit down and begin to register. Now, I will say this takes you through step by step exactly how it explains to you how you will enter the answers. So I would highly recommend that you look at that. It's very straightforward. There are no tricks. I'm going to help you with the codes, and that's the trickiest part, and it's the most important part. So once you're registered in eVA, you will begin to get emails and you'll get leads on solicitations that you might want to bid on. So it's highly important that you register. And people will often say, which should I do first, register in eVA or get certified as a small business? Because I'm going to talk in a minute about why it's so important to get certified. It doesn't matter. eVA is run by the Department of General Services, which is a totally separate agency from my agency. We work in tandem because we tell eVA every day who is a newly certified company, who is an existing certified company, and who is expired. They expired last night at midnight. All that's done on their tax ID number. So every day my agency uploads to eVA, which is run by a different agency, all of the tax IDs of people who are currently certified. If your number was in there yesterday, but you expired at midnight without recertifying, then your tax ID number will not go up today, and you will not be recertified until you make the application. So let's talk a little bit, and this is very general. I'm trying to give you how the system works. We'll get down to the mechanics of it in a few minutes. So you've registered in eVA, you're starting to get solicitations, and you have applied to be certified as a small and perhaps a micro business. And you can bid, as long as you're registered in eVA, you can bid on solicitations. However, there's always going to be a preference given to certified small and micro businesses because the ongoing governors through the years since Tim Kaine in 2006 have said, okay, I want to have a set-aside program specifically oriented to prefer spending money with certified small, women-owned, and minority-owned businesses. Now, that's the acronym for SWaM. S is for small, W is for women-owned, A is for and, M is for minority-owned. So it's a race and gender neutral program. There is no preference per se given to a company simply because it's woman-owned or minority-owned. If it's too big a company to qualify as a small company, then it is tracked. We track the spend, all the spend that we give to small or women-owned and minority-owned companies. But there's no set-aside per se, strictly because a company is woman-owned or minority-owned. The preference is given based on the size of the business. That's what the governors wanted to do, was to help all small businesses in Virginia, to include women-owned small business and minority-owned small business, but not to be exclusively for women and minorities. We wanted to give some preference based on race and gender, but our Attorney General at the time said it was unconstitutional to have a race and gender conscious program until we had proven beyond a preponderance of doubt that by having a race and gender neutral program that is only based on the size of the business, women-owned and minority-owned businesses were not getting their fair share. To some extent, we've proven that it would be helpful if we had a woman-owned and minority-owned preference, but that has not happened, either politically or for whatever reason. We have not gone yet to a race and gender conscious program. People are confused about that. They think that preference is given based on whether or not it's owned by a minority or a woman. It is not. By law in Virginia, we have a race and gender neutral program. So it's important for you, if you qualify as a small business, and the qualifications are quite generous, quite inclusive. The only thing you have to do to qualify to apply as a small business to get certified is to have less than 250 employees. So that is quite generous. And we do have a second eligibility criterion, which is your annual gross revenues. However, to meet the eligibility for small, you only have to meet one or the other of those criterion. Either you have less than 250 employees, or you make less than $10 million a year, averaged over a 3-year period. Well, obviously, if you had anywhere approaching 250 employees, you could not sustain a business if you were only making $10 million a year. It just wouldn't happen. You couldn't pay their salaries. So since you only have to meet one of those, we always defer to if a business has less than 250 employees, they are eligible to apply as a small business to be certified. Now, when Terry McAuliffe came in as governor in 2014, he looked at that and said, good night. We've got businesses that have 20 employees that are making $400 million a year because they have desks, computers, and phones, and they're calling in orders to drop ship heavy highway equipment that costs millions of dollars, or IT equipment that costs millions of dollars, but it doesn't take very many people to put in orders. So he said, we need to create a category for certification based on size that is much, much more restrictive. So he created what's called the micro category. Micro is much more restrictive. You have to meet both criteria of size, number of employees, and the dollars of gross revenues. And those thresholds are, you can't have more than 25 employees, and you can't be making more than $3 million a year averaged over that 3-year period. And the reason they take the 3 years to average is that in the beginning, this was a 3-year certification. So we said, we're going to certify you for 3 years, but at the end of those 3 years, we want to take a look at how much you've grown, because you might have graduated from the program. You might have grown to the extent that you're too big and are no longer certifiable. Well, that was a very onerous task. We had a lot of businesses, like 16,000, that were certified, and we were having to look at them every 3 years on a staggered schedule. But nonetheless, it just took a lot of manpower. So our director went to the General Assembly and got the legislators to extend those years from a 3-year certification to a 5-year certification. So now every 5 years, your certification will expire unless you ahead of time apply to be recertified, so that there's no gap in your certification. But oddly enough, we haven't caught up, the regulations haven't caught up with the law. So we're still averaging your income over a 3-year period. Don't ask me why. I have protested vehemently, but I'm not heard. So to be a micro, you have to have less than 25 or fewer employees, and you make less than $3 million a year averaged over those 3 years. So now we have the categories of small, women-owned, minority-owned, and micro. The 2 preference set-asides by law that we have are based on the size. So we have a set-aside for micro, and we have a set-aside for small. We track all of the spend with all 4 of those categories. So while we don't have a legal obligation to set aside, have a preference for women and minorities, we want our agencies to spend money with women and minorities, because they have a goal every year that they try to attain. And they tell us at the beginning of the year. They tell my agency, we send out what's called a SWaM plan to them, and that's due in about 2 weeks. And in one of the questions in that plan is, tell us what you propose, what you project that you will spend this year with the categories of small. They have it in columns: small, women-owned, minority-owned, micro. We also have a small set aside for service disabled veterans, not just straight veterans, but service disabled. And they have to have the letter from the Veterans Administration stating that they are eligible as service disabled. We have a couple of other certifications as well, but they wouldn't really pertain to any but a very small percentage. And I dare say probably not any of you. So we're going to talk about small, women-owned, minority-owned, which fall under SWaM, and micro. And then just be aware that we do have a set aside. It's a small percentage, a 3% set aside for service disabled veterans. And when I say 3%, I'm talking about each state agency has a budget. So at the beginning of the year, they try, and they have two budgets really. One is discretionary spend, and the other is non-discretionary spend. The governor has asked that all state agencies aspire, it's an aspirational goal, aspire to use at least 42% of their discretionary budget. That's money where they can make a decision. They have the discretion to make a decision on who they buy from. Non-discretionary is pretty well cast in concrete. They have to buy from certain people. So we don't talk about the non-discretionary budget. We talk about 42% of the discretionary budget. So when I say there's a 3% set aside, it's an aspirational goal. It's not, they're not going to get fired. They have to document why they couldn't reach the goal, but it's not, a legal offense if they can't meet the goal, because things happen. You can project things and all of a sudden your budget gets cut, or you have COVID, or construction stops altogether. All kinds of things can affect your projections. So it's an aspirational goal. But 3% of your discretionary budget should aspire to be spent with service disabled veterans. And in the other categories, they don't really put a percentage on each category. What they say is you've got a column for small, women-owned, minority-owned, and micro. If you add the percentages up across those columns, it should, and plus the service disabled veterans, so that's 3% right there. So really the others, at least 39% plus that 3% comes up to 42% of your discretionary budget. So that's what they're trying to spend with certified companies. So when I say there's a preference, I'm going to show you in a minute how it breaks out dollar-wise on who gets the preferences. But let's go back. Let me go back to, well, first of all, let's stop right here. And are there questions, Tracy?
We do have some questions.
Yeah. If you can help me out there.
Yep. So we are a beauty service provider. Can we get certified?
Absolutely. Any business that has a service, as long as it's legal, can get certified.
Okay. We're a 100% LGBTQ owned company. Is that considered minority?
Not at this time that I'm aware of. We haven't, There are 7 classes right now, and this is by law. It takes in African American, Hispanic American, 2 different categories of Asian American, Alaskan Aleuts, Native Americans, and the 7th one, I think at one time women was considered the 7th one. It is no more. So no, to my knowledge, we have no even any laws or any bills in the legislature that have been put forth to make that a category.
So a couple of questions around the same thing. Is there any advantage of micro over the small business certification? Is one better than the other?
Yeah, you would be both. When this preference program started in 2006, Tim Kaine was the governor who signed the first executive order, although Mark Warner was very instrumental prior to Tim Kaine in getting it lined up. But Tim Kaine signed the first executive order on August the 10th of 2006. And when he signed that, oh Lord, I've now forgotten the question. What was it? Say it again.
Micro or SWaM certified, would it be?
Yeah,
one or better?
Okay, so when he signed that, we only had at that time the category of SWaM, small women and minority. We have not, since that time, 2006, we have not changed the format of the application. Same questions. It's been tweaked, but same format. So now when you apply first to be SWaM certified, because remember I said that's a much bigger category. The only criterion you have to meet is less than 250 employees. But on that application now, so you're applying for small, you check boxes as to what else you want to apply for. And one is micro. So you simply check a box that says, I'm also eligible to be micro. You also check a box that says, I'm also woman-owned, and I'm also minority-owned, and I'm also service disabled. So small is the first thing you apply for because it's the largest category. And then you refine it by checking boxes and saying, I also qualify for this. So it's not a matter of being either or. You will be, if you're eligible for micro, you will be small certified first, and then you check the box to be micro. There are some breakouts, and in a minute on my PowerPoint, I'll show you where the breakouts are. The first cut on the smallest solicitations in dollar value are preferred for micro businesses because presumably they can handle smaller contracts. They may not have the depth or the capital to sustain a very large contract straight out of the chute. So I'll talk about that in a minute.
Are nonprofits excluded?
What else?
Are nonprofits excluded?
We have one category of nonprofits. It used to be that you had to be a for-profit business, and the state uses a lot of what we call employment service organizations. That is, they employ people who are either mentally or physically challenged or both. And all of the state buildings had, we have canteens or I can't think of the word, not restaurants, but cafeterias. And a great many of those have been run and managed by people with visibility challenges. So the agencies were spending great amounts of money to sustain these cafeterias, and that was one of the causes. But they went to bat and said, look, both the state buyers and these the vision impaired agencies or vendors said, the state is spending so much money with us, it would help their numbers, and it would certainly help our preferences if you certified us as ESOs, I can't remember if it's employee or employment service organizations, but you have to be accredited by CARF, which is, oh Lord, I forget what that acronym is, but it's for rehabilitative something, CARF, I can't remember. If you're not accredited by CARF, you wouldn't qualify as the nonprofit that can be certified. That's the only nonprofit to date that is eligible for certification.
So Courtney, we do have some questions, but some of them seem to be how to, or focus around how to get certified, the time it takes. So why don't we move on with the presentation and we can come back to the questions at the end.
Okay, I do see one here that says, are artists eligible for this grant? It's highly unlikely.
Yeah,
it's
I was
very
going to say,
specific.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's a different, we can take some questions at the end, but so, all right, let's go now to, if I can get there, I'm gonna stop sharing this one and share a different screen. Okay.
Got it.
Okay, so this is I have two PowerPoints, and I think Tracy or Allison, when you send it out, I believe this combines the other, or it incorporates much of the other PowerPoint that I sent you called just the SWaM certification. So we'll start here. I think this is the better one to send. The other one's sort of redundant. So my agency, what, do you have something to say?
No, I was just going to say, okay.
Okay, let me get myself out of the way here. Okay, our agency was formed to promote access to the Commonwealth of Virginia's contracting opportunities and to ensure that you have a fair shake in the procurement process. So there are 4 areas in my agency. One is we have something called the Virginia Small Business Financing Authority, and that is actually the division within our agency. All agencies in Virginia now are called departments. So I'm in the Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity. But within our department or our agency, we have a division called the Virginia Small Business Financing Authority, lovingly referred to as VSBFA. That took me a long time. This division are the people who are responsible for deploying that grant. We have other small business loans. It's much like a bank, if you will. It's subordinate to other banks. But if you need some cash maybe to close a gap on having enough to qualify for a commercial bank loan, VSBFA is a good place to go. You have to have been in business a while and you have to have a really good credit rating. The only grant we have well, that's not true. We do have another grant, but the one I want to focus on right now, because it's the easiest to qualify for if you fall into the categories, is that Rebuild Virginia. Then we have an advocacy pillar, if you will, and that is when the legislature meets, usually in January, February, and March, we have representatives that go over and pay attention to all the legislation that is proposed and that is passed. And so we're trying to make policy and facilitate good laws, if you will, for small business. And that's a big part of what we do. It takes up, we do a lot of studying prior to the legislature to know what's going to come up and how we feel about that and how it's going to impact small business. Then we have the business development outreach, and that's what I'm a part of. We are supporting your economic development through workshops, training, access to resources, that is contacts, networking, and one-on-one business counseling. I do that as well by appointment. And then we have our certification division, which is totally dedicated to certifying business, reviewing applications and certifying businesses as micro, small, women and minority owned. And the disadvantaged business enterprise is a federal designation. I'm not going to talk about that a lot today because I'm oriented toward doing business with the state and local governments. This one is more oriented, this DBE certification is more oriented toward doing business with the federal government. So, as I said before, if you want to sell to the Commonwealth, and that takes in both state and local government agencies, step 1, and it doesn't have to be in this order, but this is the easier of the two, is to register in eVA. And so, Virginia's procurement portal, this is the tool that's used by the Commonwealth for all purchasing activity. We have over 240 state agencies, colleges, and universities that use eVA. And it's used to announce bidding opportunities, to get quotes from vendors, and to place the orders for goods and services. We also have, this is an outdated number, it's over 900 local governments. And we have 13,000 eVA users that are constantly getting contracts. That's not all small business, it's any kind of business. So someone asked about the advantage of being micro or versus small. As I said, if you're micro, you have to be small because small is bigger than micro. But here's the way it breaks out. So for purchases that are $10,000 in value and under that, the method we use for purchasing is the buyer can get a single quote. Now, it's incumbent upon the buyer to know the fair market value. So if they get a single quote that's completely over the top in price, they can't take that. They have to know their market. And if they've been buying for a good amount of time, then they know they kind of are buying the same things over and over. They know what the going rate is. That award priority is to go to a micro business. So if they get 5 quotes and they're all pretty much within the same range, and when I say that, it really has to be within 5% by law. When this all first started, there were different feelings all over the map about what was fair and reasonable. Some agencies said, you know, I don't care if it's 12 cents cheaper. If they're not certified, but they're 12 cents cheaper, I'm going with the non-certified business because I'm a buyer for the state and my stewardship is to get the best price for the taxpayers. Other agencies said, no, that's not right. You know, 98% of the businesses in Virginia are small. We need to help them. We need to keep them afloat. It behooves us in the long run to give them business as well. So we're going to give them a 15% leeway on a sliding scale because 15% of $10,000 order is very different from 15% on a $100,000 order. So as the price of the order goes up, the percentage went down. Well, someone complained, and so some legislator put in a bill about 4 years ago that said we need to define what is fair and reasonable. So if a business is certified, you can't just give the business to them because you need to meet your goals for the year. And if they're way out of line, the state is paying a premium to do business with small business. So they came up with the percent of 5. So a certified vendor's price by law can be no more than 5% over that price of someone who is not certified. If it goes 6 or 8 or 10% over, the buyer has a duty to buy from the lesser expensive price vendor. Now, that's all assuming that they have the same quality of product, they have the same quality of service. You can't shortchange that. You have to take in all of these factors. So you can see that buyers just aren't just calling in orders. They have to do their homework. They have to be prepared. They have to be seasoned. And if they are buying something that they don't know what the fair and reasonable price is, they need to research it. They either go to Google or to trade magazines or to catalogs to see what the going price is. But my point is that for any purchase under $10,000 and under, they can get a single quote. And if they know that's a good price, they can buy it. But they also are giving priority to a micro business. Now, between 10, and let me say this, if the order is under $10,000, it no longer has to be posted on eVA. I would say the majority of our purchases are under $10,000, and buyers were having to go out to eVA and enter a solicitation, and it takes time. And if you're doing 50 or 60 of these, every 2 days, it's time consuming. And if they know they're onions in the buying world, it's just so much easier to be able to pick up the phone or to send an email and say, give me a quote on this product or this service that's under $10,000. So the buyers convinced the powers that be at DGS, that's the Department of General Services, which handles everything having to do with procurement. And they convinced them that, it really saves time and money in terms of man hours to let us not have to post solicitations for any purchase that's under $10,000. So you will not see those on eVA. And here's the thing about that. Remember I said, if you don't put in good commodity codes for your profile, you're not on anybody's radar screen. Well, if a buyer is buying something under 10,000, they do not have to post it on eVA. But sometimes often it could be a product they've never purchased, or they want to spread the wealth. They don't want to keep buying from the same vendor every time, and they're told not to do that. Spread the wealth. So what they do is they go to eVA and they put in the code for what they're buying, and they say, bring up a list of all micro-certified businesses that have this code in their profile. And they use that list to call those buyer or vendors and ask them for a quote. So while it's not being posted in eVA, the buyer still may be using eVA to get a list of names of micro-certified vendors that sell that good or that service. That's another reason you want to pay particular attention to getting the right codes in your profile, so you'll get on those lists. So now let's move to solicitations that are over 10,000 and they go up to 100,000. These are what we call quick quotes, and quick quotes must be posted in eVA. They must stay out on eVA a minimum of 3 days. It used to be 1 day, and vendors were saying, look, I'm a one-armed paper hanger here. I do everything. I'm out in the field. I'm having to do my books. I don't have time every single day to review solicitations in eVA. Could you extend that? So they extended the quick quote minimum time it stays in eVA to 3 days. Oftentimes a quick quote will stay out there 2 weeks. It just depends on the size and the urgency, if you will, of a purchase. So the award priority for these quick quotes is to go to a small business. They're going to look at those first. But remember, if you're small, you might also be a micro business as well. You certainly can fall in that category. You may be too big, so you are not micro, but you are small. Therefore, micro businesses can bid on these purchases that are of this value. But as I said, if you're a micro business and let's say you haven't been in business very long, you might not want to commit to, unless it's a good. If it's a service, that's a little scarier to commit to doing a service for $75,000 to the state, because they hold your feet to the fire and they will call you in default if you don't perform. So those are the breakouts. The next one is purchases that are over $100,000. Now, let me just step back for a second to quick quotes. These are competitively bid, and depending on the dollar value, they might want to get up to 3 or 4 quotes. And they will get them online. And I'm going to show you how you respond to quick quotes. But now on anything over 100,000, that's what we call a sealed bid. So, and the two most common sealed bids are IFBs, which stands for Invitation for Bid, and RFP, which stands for Request for Proposal. On an IFB, it's a competitive sealed bidding. No one else sees your bid, and it has very specific terms. It's much like a quick quote, but because of the value of it, it is sealed. And it has very detailed specifications. This particular kind of sealed bid is awarded based on price. It goes to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Those are two buzzwords that buyers always have to use by regulation. Responsive says, did they address every requirement that I put forth in this solicitation? Have they addressed every one of them and shown that they can perform? That's responsive. Responsible says, okay, they said they can do it, but do they have the proof? Do they have 3 references that I can call who say, yes, they do a great job, they do it on time and on budget? So responsive says, yeah, this particular vendor addressed everything and they're saying they can do it. Responsible says, okay, show me the money, show me the goods. Let me be sure that you can do what you say you can do. Do you have the proper training? Do you have the proper education? Do you have the proper certifications? They're very detailed and they will always ask for 3 references. They may not call those references, but you better be prepared for them to call those references. They want to know that you can do what you say you can do. So that, as I said, this is awarded based on price, going to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. A request for proposal is a little different. It's a competitive negotiation. There's no negotiation in an IFB. All construction is awarded on IFBs because they say, here's what I want, here's when I want it, here's how I want it done, give me your quote. And it's very specific. A request for proposal says, we've got a problem here and we don't know how to solve it. So let's say we want to completely revamp our computer IT department with new hardware, new wiring, new networking, and we don't know how to do it. We're calling in experts to make a proposal for a solution. So then they evaluate those solutions and they find 2 or more offerers that they like their solution. So they select them. It could be 3. Oftentimes it's 3, but it just depends on time as well. But they will at least get 2 offers selected based on their solution. They evaluate them and they rank them. And so what they will do is rank them, let's say 1, 2, and 3. They'll go to their first choice and try to negotiate a price, something that's agreeable to both parties. If the first choice says, no, that's way too low, I can't do it for that, they'll throw him out and go to number 2, the second solution they liked. If they can't come to a meeting of the minds, they'll often go to a number 3. And after 3, the buyer says, boy, I must have overlooked something. I didn't cover what they're all saying I didn't cover. I need to go back to the drawing board and tweak this RFP and put this in. So, and then, in the midst of all these things, budgets can be cut or their requirements change. Anything can happen, and so they might either postpone it, they might cancel it, they might reissue it at a later time. But this is the breakout. Now, I told you that on purchases under 10,000, the award priority is for micro business. If they can't find a micro that does it, that quotes a good price, they'll then step up to a small business. If the small business can't give it at that competitive price, they'll open it up to the world. So you've got 3 layers. They first go to the micro because that's the priority. Then they'll go to the small. If they can't get a good price in either of those two categories, they have to get it from someone who's not certified, which doesn't help their numbers. And then the purchases that are 10,000 to 100,000, the award priority is for small, but micros can bid on that. And if they can't get a good price from either the micro, well, if it's a micro, it's also going to be a small. Then they'll open it up to the world. Now, where I think a lot of startup companies or emerging companies, or even companies that have existed a while, but they've never done business with the state on their own, where I think they stand to gain some traction is with these purchases over $100,000, because any purchase over $100,000 must have a subcontracting plan in it, whereby the prime, if they are not certified themselves, and they can be, certainly there are small businesses that have less than 250 employees that are, as I said, making $400 million. So they can qualify, unfortunately, for the really small businesses, they can qualify as small. If they themselves are certified and they're awarded the contract, they don't need to subcontract to anybody else. We're happy for them to have the entire pie, the whole pie. But what we're saying is, look, if you're so large that you're not eligible to be certified as small, and you get $1 million contract with the state, you need to give some portion, some percentage of that contract to a certified small business. And that's where I think we have something in eVA called B2B Connect, Business to Business Connect. And that's where you can say, you see a solicitation that you're too small to take the whole thing, but you could subcontract on it. So this is where I think small businesses have their best opportunity with the state to start out. Okay, so these are the things you need to register, and I'm not going to go through these a whole lot. Commodity codes is it. And remember, I said you go to this button and it'll take you then to this screen where you register, and you've got all this, and you're going to get this in the PowerPoint. So I'm going to kind of rush through this. Now, this just takes step by step what you put in these, fill in the blanks. You need your tax ID number here. And now, this is a little bit different, and I apologize. They're constantly tweaking eVA, and they've changed the look of it a little bit. So I'm going to go out, if I can, to, hold on a minute. How do I do this? I'm going to have to stop sharing here and share this screen. Where is my, I think this is.
You got it.
I'm going to go back to, yeah, is this the home page? Nah, wait a minute. New format. I'm not sure what I've got. You can't see what I'm doing, can you?
We could see what you were doing there, Courtney.
I'm trying to get, all right, let me go here. I'm going to go out to eVA again.
Yep, I think if you click on the first tab, the Register Now tab.
Can you see this? Can you see
Yes.
this now, Tracy? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going out to eVA again. They've changed the format, so what's in my PowerPoint is a little different for where you go to look up NIGP codes, I think. Let me go down. No, it's not. It's still here. Okay. So at the bottom of the home page on eVA, you have the NIGP code lookup. Now, it is a very, it's coming. It takes a minute to load in. So you can either go up and put, spend time doing your word description and so forth. I highly hate that. go over to this bubble with the question mark in it, and above it, it says download the NIGP code book. The book is about 116 pages, and it has not been updated since February of 2011. Now, they do from time to time retire different codes and put new ones in, but I'm just going to take you down to, and this is the worst part, I'm going to get down to, here we go. Each of the categories, and it does start at the 0 level. Let me go back to the very beginning if I can get there. Well, I spend a lot of time doing this. Yeah, here we go. So it does start, as I said, with a 0. And remember, 0, if it starts with 0 to 8, these are products. Each of these categories is what we call a family or a class. And all of them have a 3-digit root number. To get the parent code of this particular family of goods, all you do is add 00. So here it's 08000. If you go over here, it's 09500. And if you notice, the description of the parent code is exactly the same as the description of the family code. If you put the parent code in your profile, you're going to get emails for every solicitation for any of the children in this family. And you have to really think about that. If you're a supplier, that's probably a good thing. But if you're a service-oriented business, it can be a bad thing. And I'll show you why. Because you may, let's just say you're a highly specialized supplier and you only sell convention badges and name tags. You don't sell folders, you don't sell nameplates, you don't sell any of these other products. Well, if that's true, if you have only one child in a family of, say, 20 or 30 children, drill down and find the child that you sell. Do not put the parent code in unless you want to start selling these things and you're just trying to gain data on how much people buy nameplates and recycled awards and luggage tags. Don't glut your email box with solicitations that you really can't provide. Because what happens is you say, well, I may not sell them now, but I want to sell them at some point. So you get desensitized and you start putting these particular solicitations in a folder for you to come back to. It's like junk mail. If you don't throw it away, it just sits on your counter in the kitchen or your desktop. And, finally, you just have to throw it away. It gets out of date. So let's say you put a bunch of solicitations in a folder and you say, I'll come back to them on the weekend when I have time. Well, then a child comes home from college and you're doing other things. And then you finally get back to it and there was a solicitation you might have wanted to bid on. But guess what? You left it sitting there so long, the solicitation closed, so you can't bid on it. So I say you have to know what your personality is. If you're really good about doing what you say you're going to do, then perhaps you want to look at things and analyze them. But if you're like I am and you have tons of things going on, I want to get down to exactly what pertains to me. So you can put the parent code. Now, buyers used to do that a lot. They wanted to cast the widest net they could. So they would put that they wanted badges, awards, and emblems. But when you read the solicitation, they were really only looking for luggage tags. And you don't sell luggage tags, but you have one of the children you sell, as I said, you sell convention badges. So you're a child in that family. Because the buyer put in the parent code, you're going to get that solicitation for luggage tags, but you're going, why did I get that? I didn't put luggage tags in there. You didn't, but the buyer had put the parent code in for the solicitation when she really was looking only for luggage tags. I'm much more oriented toward being specific about your codes. The only place I think it's good maybe to use a parent code is under construction, because oftentimes if you are a GC and you know who to sub it out to, so it's good for you to get solicitations on any kind of construction. So let's see, I'm going to scroll down and let's go to all of the service codes begin. Here are the page numbers at the bottom of each page, and service codes begin on page 80. Let's see. Well, I'm almost there. Okay, first one, 905, aircraft and airport operations services. This is the first service code, and they all begin with 9, remember? So here again, you just add 00, and you have the same description for the parent that you have for the whole family or class. And you might have aerial photography. You do that, but you certainly don't do aircraft crash removal services. Well, you're not going to want to put the parent code and possibly get solicitations for aircraft painting services when all you do is aerial photography. Are people understanding? It's hard when I'm not getting any response as to whether or not people understand what I'm saying. Tracy, do you know how to ask that question?
And have people, I'm not sure that we can really ask the question. I mean, I guess I could do a poll.
Well, are people asking any questions about the coding?
So far, the only question about I mean, we have questions, not necessarily about the coding, but
yeah,
what about using a parent code for education and training consulting?
Well, actually, let's go down to that for a minute. And these are alphabetized, so I think there is one for education and training, and I'm terrible about, or it's training and education, one or the other. Here we go, educational training services. Well, first of all, there aren't that many children in this family. Some families have 60, 70, 80 children. If you do all of these services, or if you know somebody you could subcontract with, then I think it behooves you to put the parent code. And I would say oftentimes the buyer would put the parent code too. But in the body of the solicitation, the buyer will describe, and it may not be educational training services, it may be not for credit classes. It'll be something more specific, and it may be something that you either do or don't do. But particularly when it's a family that doesn't have that many children in it, or that there's not that much specificity, if you will, of these training classes. So I think it's up to you, but I'm going to show you a different way to look for codes as well. I'm going to show you to find out what other people who may be doing the same thing you're doing have in their coding system. And
Courtney, about 95% are understanding the coding.
Thank you. I don't know if that's my explanation or just the simplicity of it, but mainly what I want to get across here is that if you put the parent code in, you're going to get solicitations for every child under there. You just have to look at the children and see if you're interested in seeing solicitations for the other children that you are not. Because remember I said, even if you drill down and get the specific child that only you do, like school operation and management services, the buyer might put in the parent code and not be looking for school operation and management services. She's looking for in-service training or instructor-led classroom training. And you go, why did I get that? Because you're one of the children in the parent family, the parent code in the family of the parent code she put in. That's what I'm trying to get across.
So one question was, if you put in the wrong code, can you update it?
Absolutely. And I'll show you where. Yeah, you have an account maintenance system that, and I would highly suggest that you tweak these from time to time. But you can add, delete, or change at any time. You just need to be sure that when you register in eVA, you write down your login username and your password. And if you don't use that password, if you don't log in, I think it's every, I want to say 60 days.
I think it's 90, but.
Pardon me?
I think it might be 90.
Okay, well, they were talking about changing it, and it was 90 days, and someone else said, no, it's going to be 60. So I don't know. But at any rate, if you haven't used it in 90 days, you're not, I mean, from time to time, you should just go in there to be looking for business opportunities and just to keep up the practice. But if at some point, it's either 60 or 90 days, if you haven't used your login information, you still have your username, but your password will have gone dormant and you'll have to change it. You'll have to reset it. So now, let me see. I want to go back to let me get, how do I get this thing off to the side, Tracy? The top part. There we go. Okay. All right. So I want to go back to the home page. So I'm going to eventually get back to my PowerPoint, and there was a screen, and I thought this was outdated, but you can still go down to the bottom of the home page and see under Tools, the NIGP code lookup. Another way you can do it is up here for Resources, right here, NIGP code lookup. That's what I thought they had changed it to altogether, but they haven't. There are lots of ways to get to Rome on eVA. All roads lead to Rome, but you just, the only way you're going to learn how to get places is to do it yourself. Because if you look at what I'm showing you and you understand it and it all makes sense, but you go away and you don't use it, you don't register in eVA, and you don't use, if you're registered already and you don't use it for 90 days, you're going to be calling me saying, could we go over that again? And I'm going to say, no, I can't. I'm on to the next people. So I'm happy to help you. But if I get the feeling that somebody has done nothing and they want a complete review of everything I've done, because I really spend a lot of energy talking to you all, and I'm happy to do it. I want you to succeed. But if I can't hold your hand. If you don't use it, you lose it. So the other way I want you to be aware that you can look up codes is this. I'm going to go to the eVA vendor list, which is right under NIGP code lookup on the home page. What I'm going to do here is we have over 90,000 vendors who are registered in eVA. Now, they don't all use eVA, but they are registered. And there will be businesses that do similar things to what you do. And I'm going to take just a generic term. You might have the term education training services or training or education in your title of your business. Just for simplicity, I'm going to put in janitorial services, because I know that there will call up a lot of businesses that have those words in their title. So it's spinning, and it takes a minute to go out and find them and load them in. But you can do this with any business. The trick is you do need to kind of zero in on a keyword. So look at all the companies that have janitorial services in the title of their business. And I'm just going to take any one of these and look at it for a minute, because I want to see what codes they have in there. And this probably isn't the best one because there aren't that many codes for janitorial services. So I'll do something else in a minute. But let's look at their profile. And to get any company's profile, you don't have to be registered. This is open to the public. Anyone can go in and look at this. You click on their eVA number to the left of the name. Okay, this brings up the profile for this company. So they're in Richmond. They are not certified. It would give their certification numbers here. They have not had any awards in the last 2 years, because if they've had any contracts with the state, it would be here. They registered themselves. They weren't registered by a buyer. Oftentimes a buyer will call somebody for a quote, and they like the quote, and the person is certified, and they'll say, "Are you registered in eVA?" And the vendor says, "What's eVA?" And she goes, "Oh no, I don't want to wait for them. I don't want to depend on them to register. Let me register her." So it would say here state registered if that were the case. But this is self-registered, and they do have the one code, which is the primary code for janitorial services. I'm going to go, that wasn't smart on my part. So let me go back to, whoops, let me go back. Let me put in, well, let me just put the word training and see what comes up. And you may not have the word training in the title of your business, but what you want to do is come up with a key word for what it is you do. So here's CDL training, Virginia Public Safety Training. So you would need to go down through here and see if any kind of training pertains to what you do. The other thing you want to do is go over to this column right here. If you see right here at the top, it says SWaM type. Well, look at all the blanks in this column. But here's one that's O, S, and W. Now, when we came up with the SWaM acronym, M was the initial that was used for minority. So when we came up with the micro category, we couldn't use M again. So they decided to use O for other. So O really stands for, this company is micro certified, they're small, and they're woman owned. So I'm going to go back over here. It's Kathy Henson Training, and it's A Kathy because she wants to be at the top. Look at her, click on her eVA number. And it doesn't say what kind of training she does. She's in North Dinwiddie, Virginia. She is small, woman-owned, and micro. She started on this date. Remember, it's a 5-year certification, so she expires on the same date in 2024. She's had business, and I dare say it's helped her to be certified. So we're going to look at these two things in a minute. Now, we are currently in fiscal year 2021, even though our fiscal year begins on July 1 of any given year. So even though it began July 1 of 2020, if it ends June 30th of 2021, it's labeled as fiscal year 2021. So the past year ended on June 30th of this year. We're going to look at what she did in a minute. But here are her codes. So she does education and training consulting. She has services, course development, inspection, safety training. So she must do something. Let's look at what she's done. Last year, anything that has a line under it is a link, and you can click on it to drill down and see what this contract, or it may not be just one contract, it may be multiple small contracts. So The Virginia Department of Transportation issued these purchase orders to her on these dates. The line total for this one, well, this looks like a bookkeeping kind of element here. But let's see what it was. Immediate work zone for our VA. So she must do training, you know, I guess showing workers how to be safe in work zones. I would think that's what this is. UVA used her, and they, Catherine Henson Instructional Services, for a 2-day workshop. And Culpeper is a regional, a district office for VDOT. So I don't know why. There must have been work. VDOT might have been doing work around UVA.
Courtney,
Yeah.
can I interrupt for a second? I just wanted to let you know that it was 11:22 and the training scheduled till 11:30. So I didn't know if we wanted to skip over to some questions.
Okay. All right. Well, let me say this. You will get the PowerPoint, and it takes you through much of what I'm talking about with eVA. I hope that it will reinforce a lot of the things that I said. I like to give you a chance just to sit back, relax, and try to get in your mind how it works. Then you've got the mechanics of it with the PowerPoint. The certification, I do want to go through a couple of things with that. Let's stop sharing, and yes, give me some questions.
Okay. If there's no preference for women-owned and minority-owned, what's the point of either designation?
As I said, while there's no preference by law, we do track the spend that each agency uses with women-owned and minority-owned companies. And they are tasked with having some sort of percentage goal to spend with women and minorities. So by all means, if you are a woman and a minority, you will be those, let's say you're all three categories. You're small, you're woman, and you're minority. You're going to be counted first as a minority. That percentage that they spend with you will go into that bucket. So it's very important. And there are fewer women-owned and minority-owned businesses certified. So you definitely have an advantage. While it's not in law, the only preference in law is based on the size of the business. It is very advantageous for you to be certified as a woman and or a minority.
Okay, so I'm registered in eVA. Does that mean I'm automatically SWaM registered, certified?
No,
certified?
not at all. Not at all. Remember, I said eVA is a totally separate agency. All being registered in eVA enables you to do is receive orders, receive contracts, and receive, and sometimes the order is the contract, to bid, to look at, well, you can look at solicitations without being registered, but you cannot bid on them without being registered. And certification is done by my agency, which is a totally separate process. And my PowerPoint flows from being registered in eVA to then going into the SWaM certification process. There are a few things I want to cover quickly before we adjourn in the SWaM certification process.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and do that?
No, those are two separate processes.
I figured. I just wanted to make sure that we covered that.
Yeah.
The SWaM certification, how long does it take?
That's one thing I wanted to cover. It's in red on the PowerPoint.
Why don't we go through that, Courtney?
Okay.
Make sure we cover that before people start dropping off.
All right. Oh, wait. This is the one I want. Okay. I want to get down, and this takes a minute. Let's see. My eyesight is not that good. I'm going to start about here. Well, a little higher. I can't remember exactly what, here we go, I think, yeah. Standard processing time is 60 business days, not calendar days. 60 business days takes out all weekends, Saturday and Sunday, and all state holidays. So if you get a calendar and you count from the day that a complete, and that's gray, but it should be in red, from the receipt of a complete application. If you count on the calendar, excluding weekends and state holidays, it equates to about 90 calendar days. So it's a long process. And people call and say, you know, I submitted my, like I just had one the other day, I submitted my application in May. Well, it's not quite time. With all the holidays and weekends that we've had, and they do not look at your application until that 60th business day. Then, if there's something that is missing or they feel like they need to ask for additional documentation, the clock doesn't start over, but it's kind of put on hold until you submit that new information they've requested.
Is it taking any longer because of the COVID crisis?
No, actually, I've been told that they're more productive at home than they were at work. So I don't think so. I think we're pretty much up to date. All of these PowerPoint slides are very explanatory, self-explanatory, and the application process is very simple, but you do have to, once you've filled out the application, you register, you get a login username and password, and you will have to submit supporting documents. A lot of times people will complete the application and they think that's it. No, everyone has to submit proof of identification, which is usually the DMV, a copy of your DMV license. Then you have to prove that you're either a US citizen or you're a permanent resident, and you have to do that. And all of these documents, of course, have to be current. So you could use a passport or your birth certificate, or if you're a permanent resident, a card or your certificate of naturalization. Then you have to submit documented proof of your owner's contribution to the business. This is really important in two instances when you're trying to prove that you're woman-owned or you're minority-owned. In the initial stages of this program, a lot of times men would own a hauling business, let's say, and they would hear that it was advantageous for the woman to own the business. So he would just give her 51%. She didn't pay for it. She didn't start it. She was a career nurse, registered nurse. She's never been in the hauling business. But he would say, my wife owns the business. Well, not only does she have to own it, she has to run the day-to-day operation. So quickly we learn by these two things. How much money did she put in it? And this was true for minorities too. A lot of big businesses would put a minority employee in business and do everything for them to be what we called a front. That's no longer the case because it didn't take long for us to figure that one out, and people realized they couldn't get away with it. So the documented proof of owner's contribution is, what did you put in? How did you gain 51% or 100% of this business? Doesn't have to be sophisticated. If you've been in business over 5 years, you only have to write a paragraph because they assume that you might not have the documentation. If it's less than 5 years old, you need to either show that you opened a bank account with deposit slips, or you purchased computer equipment or office furniture, something that shows, even if you registered with the State Corporation Commission, a canceled check saying, you paid $75 to become a corporation. Some kind of documented proof to show what you contributed. And then they find out by the resume of owners, because a lot of times while the husband had the hauling business, he gave it to his wife as the owner, but he stayed as the president. That doesn't fly. If it's a woman-owned business, the woman has to hold the highest office in the company. So they want resumes of the officers and the owners, and the resume is going to say she's been a registered nurse for 25 years. He's been in the hauling business for 25 years. He's the president. She's the secretary. Oops, that doesn't qualify as a woman-owned business. So this is why they're asking for these types of things. And then copies of professional licenses. Let's say you're a contractor and you have a contractor's A, B, or C license. You need to submit a copy of that. Business licenses, you need to submit copies of that. Permits, I don't really know where permits, I don't know what that even means. I can't think of it right now. Oh yeah, if you had a CDL license, people might call that a permit. And then business tax returns. If you've never filed tax returns, you're a startup business, they're going to ask for a letter, a copy of the letter from the IRS that gives you your EIN number, employee identification number. If you have no employees, you should have answered that on your application. Please don't say that you're an employee, even though you own the business, and you might take a draw from time to time when you can or need money. You're not an employee unless you're filing weekly, bi-weekly, monthly paychecks, and you're filing Social Security taxes, unemployment taxes, all the regular things that an employee does. Even if you take a regular paycheck from your own business, but you're not doing those things, you may be a contractor. So don't answer that your company has 2 employees if you're both operating on 1099s as contractors. Because if you answer that you have employees, they're going to ask for your first page of the 941 quarterly, which an employer has to file if he has employees. You don't want to be asked for that if you don't have them. And if you are by chance asked for it, if you answered that you had employees, you need to go back and change that. Or if through some glitch of the system, you're asked for, let's say you're asked for a business permit and your particular jurisdiction does not require a business permit. All you have to do is take a blank sheet of paper, just to be safe, put the name of the business and the address at the top as a letterhead, and just say, my particular profession is not required by the city of Fredericksburg, if that's where you're located, or the county of Spotsylvania, to have a business license, and sign it and date it. Any statements you make needs to be signed and dated to be valid. Okay, let's see. Oh, and then once you've submitted those first, I think it's 6 items, 7. Well, if you had employees, most people only have to file 6. Then it's going to go into whether or not you're a corporation or an LLC or sole proprietorship. And it will ask for certain documents that you had to file at the State Corporation Commission. But if you do not submit whatever it asks for, or a statement saying you didn't need to have that particular document, it won't let you proceed to complete the application. So don't think that because you've completed the form of the application, but not submitted all these documents, you will not be complete. People do that, and you're going to get at the end of the application, if you have submitted a complete application, you will get an email saying, we have received your complete application. That's the only way you know. And I would take a picture of that email or print it out. Let me see what else. Okay. This is just to get you into the system. When you go to our SWaM application portal, and that's on our website, which is here, www.sbsd.virginia.gov. Over on the right-hand side, sidebar, it'll say Certification application portal. You'll click on that portal and it'll take you to this. And if you're not registered yet, you have to register with your name, and you give it a username and your password. You confirm it, you give it the email, and you click on register. And then it will take you to thanks for registering with us. Please confirm your account. You click on that link and confirm it, and then it will say your activation, your email is verified. You can now log in and create applications. And it will take you to the login page. And then you will click on this link that says link. If you were linking to an old application, and you can do that. So if you are in the process of applying, but you haven't finished, be sure when you get up to go to have lunch or to go outside and mow the grass, be sure you click this. There's a button down on the lower right hand side, save. So all your information is saved. If you do not save, when you come back, you'll have to start all over again. But when you come back, if you click on this link, you're linking to your original application, or you're creating a new application, either way. But if you click on this and you already saved everything, it'll pop right up. And then it just takes you through. Remember, I said you're applying for small, and you might be applying for micro, woman-owned, minority-owned, and disabled veteran. You wouldn't be an ESO too. ESO is kind of a category into itself. And then it goes through, once you've gone through the whole application, it takes you to these required documents. And I would suggest that you look at this list based on the answers you gave on your application. It's going to give you a list of all the documents you need. And I would copy and save, or download and save each document labeled just the way you have on your desktop. And then you can just hit upload, go out to your desktop and click it, and it's very fast. It uploads it very quickly. And here are those save and next buttons. Be sure you save. I just like to save at every turn. And then once you've uploaded all your documents, you click the next button, and it will say, I think there's an affidavit. Yeah, there's an affidavit you have to sign saying you've never been debarred, you've never done anything fraudulent with the state. And then after that, you'll submit, and it will give you the email saying we've received your complete application. And when you go back to our website, if you scroll down, there's a little area that says what's hot. You can click on certification application status. It's going to say pending until that 60th business day. I mean, just count on it. I hope they don't make a liar out of me, but they haven't so far. They don't look at it. They have a tickler file, and it's like an alarm clock that says, oh, 60th business day, look at this application. Here at the end of the PowerPoint is my contact information. I will be glad to help you. And, I should put this guy's contact information as well, but I won't do that to him. But I will say, if you have a pencil and a piece of paper, copy this down, because he's excellent. He's a better troubleshooter than I am, because this is what he does all day long. His name is Olinder, O-L-I-N-D-E-R, not Olinder, but Olinder Jones. And his number is 804-593-2008. He is our lead customer service representative, and he fields calls 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. And he's privy to a lot more changes than I am. So oftentimes I'll have to call him, and he'll say, oh yeah, we did this or that or the other. And I say, well, nobody told me. But if you're at a place where you're trying to get to the next page and you can't do it and you can't get hold of me, he's an excellent resource. He will just walk you through it better than I can. But I'm glad to help you in any way I can. And I'm sorry I took so long. I thought we went till 12. So are there any burning questions that I can answer?
Well, I think what we're going to do, Courtney, is we're going to take the Q&A and work with you to get some of the answers for those offline.
Okay.
I do have one
Okay.
question, which I know I've gotten some questions in the past about, so I'd love the answer to. If somebody's application has taken more than 60 days and they haven't heard anything, what do they do?
Well, they can contact me for sure.
Okay.
They can also contact a lender. He'll find out faster than I can what's happened to it. And that shouldn't be happening. You have every right on the 60th business day from the time unless they've asked for additional information. If they've asked for additional information, you don't go back to the back of the line, but it does slow down the process. That's why I say it's better to give all the information at the time of application. But sometimes you think you have given it all and they have a question and they have the right to ask for additional information to clarify any question. But you have a right to inquire.
Questions would come via email, so is it possible that they got
Yes.
questions they don't know about because it went into a spam box or something like that?
What was that? I didn't get the last
Oh, I
part.
was just saying they may not know that they got a question. I mean, they basically
Oh, no.
that
Well,
no additional information was asked for.
Conceivably, it could go into a spam. It could go into spam. That's happened. I know that's happened. But because it says do not reply. I don't know how to get around that because that's the way they send them.
Courtney, since you did think that we were going to go on to noon, I can stay on and answer questions. I would like to close this out for people that thought that they were going to be done at 11:30 because I do want to be respectful of their time because we did.
Far too much. Yeah, it's far too much information to cover in an hour and a half. I thought it was 2 hours.
That's fine. My apologies. It was advertised for an
right.
hour and a half. So let me go ahead and just for those people that do need to move on because they thought that it was an hour and a half, they can do that, and then we can stay on and answer some of these questions, okay?
Okay.
So I wanted to thank everyone for attending today. Obviously, Courtney gave us some great information. You'll be receiving an email after the session with a link to the recording as well as an evaluation. I also put that evaluation link in the chat window if you wanted to fill that out more. It helps us to continue to improve our sessions. Our next session or part 2 of this will be on October 14th, doing business with the Commonwealth. Also on the Virginia SBDC website, you can find the business recovery webpage, which the Virginia SBDC developed to help owners continue to do business during this challenging time. These detailed guidelines cover a broad range of critical considerations ranging from safety and workplace guidance to financial assessments and marketing and communications. Well, you can use them by yourself. They were designed to be used with a local SBDC counselor. And again, you can find our offices on our website if you're not already hooked up with one of our local offices. So if those of you that do have other things that you need to attend to, you're feel free to jump off and I will continue to plow through these questions. If you have sent in your application, can you make adjustments to the SWaM application before you're asked for additional information?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
If you've made adjustments to if your application's already submitted and you need to make adjustments, can you do that even if you haven't been asked to do that? Okay.
Yes, you can go in until that 60th business day. As I say, they're not going to look at it. So you can log in and it will bring it up and you can go line by line and make any changes that are necessary. Or you could add, upload a document.
Okay. If you have women-owned small business certification from a private agency, do you still need SWaM certification?
Yes, the only, well, yeah, the only certification that state agencies can recognize is our certification. We're the gold standard for certification for state and local, in many instances, local government too. That's why it shows, excuse me, but that's why it shows up in your eVA account. Remember, I showed you in the profile. That's why we upload every day to eVA, so that buyers are aware of who is certified by our agency.
My DUNS number is 7 digits with 2 alpha characters. The SWaM app won't accept alpha characters.
And actually, I don't believe you need a DUNS number anymore, because eVA used to require that. That was the way you had to have a DUNS number to register in eVA. They did away with that. Now, because our application is the original one we had, you still might have to put that in if you say you're registered in eVA, but I don't believe you have to. That's an Olinder Jones question. I can either call him or you can call him, but I'm not sure about that one.
So just to clarify, I should get certified and then register in eVA, or should they register in eVA since the application, the SWaM application, takes 60 days at a minimum?
Yeah, no, you don't have to wait to be certified to register in eVA. You could register in eVA as soon as we hang up today. And you are actually, once you register in eVA, you are bona fide to bid on anything. However, it's highly unlikely you're going to win the bid unless your price is so far below that of a certified SWaM vendor. Because remember, I said each buyer has an aspirational goal that they have to fulfill. And if they're not tracking, there are supervisors, some supervisor, it could be an immediate supervisor or higher up, 3 or 4 levels higher up. They're tracking whether or not they're spending enough money with SWaM certified vendors to meet those goals by the end of the year. So you can register in eVA today and you can be qualified to bid. But I would go ahead and as soon as possible apply for certification, because that's a long process. And you'll start getting the solicitation leads for your particular commodity codes while you're waiting to be certified. I would play around with that and navigate eVA. There's some wonderful training videos on eVA. So you don't have to wait to be certified to register in eVA, if that was the question.
Yeah. I wasn't asked for a debarment and acknowledgement affidavit. What do I do?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I wasn't asked for the debarment and or acknowledgement affidavit. What should I do?
Well, if you weren't asked for it, they must not be asking for it anymore. They used to ask for it. I don't know. I haven't had that question. So I will, you know, if that person wants to email me, I will talk to Olinder and get back to them. But if you weren't asked for it, did they get acknowledgement that they completed the application?
We'll wait for their answer. How long does it take for you to get certified in eVA?
You're not certified in eVA. eVA is strictly a registration. It's a sign up. And that happens, your listing should be in eVA, they say 24 to 48 hours. I don't know if that's what they're sticking to with COVID or not. But all they have to do is hit a refresh button to add in people who have registered. So it should be within 24 to 48, maybe 72 hours. I'm not sure, but it's pretty much not instantaneous, but it should be right away.
And the
There's
answer
no review. There's no review process when you register in eVA. With us, there's a review process where somebody has to go through your application and look at all your documents as well.
So the person that asked about the affidavit did say that their application was accepted and they got an acknowledgement.
Then don't say a word.
How do you update the listing for their business entity? I believe this is on the eVA site where you were looking.
Yes. If you will indulge me, I'll take you back to the website. And I wish I could have gotten to this. Hold on a minute. Oh, I'm so bad at this, Tracy. I can't. All right, I'm sharing this.
Yep, there you go.
Stop sharing that one, and I'm going to share. I think this is where. No, that's not it. Sorry. Okay. No, I'm doing the wrong. I'm in my PowerPoint still. Let's just go to a new screen. Can you see this?
I can.
Huh?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to eVA. You can see that?
Yep. Well,
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So this is important. On the homepage, these 3 blocks. I sell to Virginia, I buy for Virginia, what Virginia buys. And we're going to talk about this one next session. But I sell to Virginia, click on that one. And it takes you to, and I would highly recommend that you just read this overview of their story. And it goes through those purchase thresholds that I talked about. But over on the right-hand side, Tools, eVA Vendor Training. If you click on eVA Vendor Training, there are a bunch of PDFs and videos. So what is eVA? And I would just read all of these while you're waiting to get certified. How to register, receive electronic orders. Oh, that's something I didn't talk about too, but anyway. Go down to, and this is how to respond to bids. That's that B2B Connect. Just read all this stuff, because every time, you need to see this stuff 3 or 4 times before it sinks in. Maintaining your account. What was the question again, Tracy?
Updating a business listing.
What do you mean updating?
Updating your business on the vendor
Well, this is
location.
okay. How to add a location, this tells you how to add or delete commodity codes, how to add new contacts, anything you want to know about how to maintain your account, you can click on these and there's a step-by-step guide.
If I'm offering I'm sorry,
No, that's all right. Never mind.
If
I just
I'm
want to go through it again. If they're on the home page on eVA, in order to see this, just go down to this box. I sell to Virginia, click on it, excuse me, and go over to eVA Vendor Training and click on it and scroll down until you see what it is you need to do. What was the other question, Tracy?
Oh, there was a new one. If I'm offering a consulting service in CSR, do I need to be in eVA?
CSR, what is that?
I'm not sure. I assumed that you might.
Me either. Customer service representative? I don't know what that is.
All right, Nadine, if you could clarify what that is.
She's offering, what was it?
Corporate social responsibility is what CSR is.
Okay, but read me the question once more, please.
If I am offering a consulting service in CSR, do I need to be in eVA? So that's the actual consulting in corporate social responsibility, does she need to be an eVA?
Well, it depends on whether or not she wants to sell to any state or local government agency. Corporate, I would think, is corporate, private industry. But excuse me a minute, got a frog. eVA is strictly, you only need to register in eVA if you want to be privy, have access to solicitations issued by government agencies, whether they be state government or local government agencies. If you're dealing with corporate America, you do not need to be registered in eVA. However, this is something I did not cover. On the home page of eVA, when you register in eVA, and it talks about this in the step-by-step registration guide. This is one thing I did not cover. It's important though too. It's just very slow. So when you register in eVA, there is something called a REBA. And I'll be darned, they've taken it out down here. Let me see if it's here. Huh. Ariba, A-R-I-B-A, which I learned in Spanish means stand up. Let me look here a minute. Ariba is a private industry company that wrote the software to enable state agency buyers to send out electronic purchase orders. And so when you register in eVA, you also want to register in Ariba. Otherwise, your Ariba network account also makes you an available supplier to all other Ariba customers. Ariba has a wide array of Fortune 500 companies as members. And as I say, eVA customer care, when you finish logging or registering with eVA, it will say, are you also registered in Ariba? You want to register at the time you register in eVA, because that way it ties your eVA account to your Ariba account. And it enables buyers to send you electronic purchase orders. They don't have to fax them to you anymore. And this lady who's asking about, do I need to register in eVA if I want to do corporate sustainability, CSR? You might definitely want to register in eVA to give you the possibility of doing business with state government. But you also want to be sure you register in Ariba, because there are a lot of corporate customers in Ariba, and they use Ariba as their network, much the way the state uses eVA as their network to purchase.
So Courtney, we're right at noon.
Yeah.
Just to follow up on that question about you want to be registered in eVA to do business with government. With the
Right.
certification, the SWaM certification, is it kind of the same thing? If you want to do business, would there be a reason to get certified if you weren't looking to do business with the state or with government?
Possibly, because a lot of corporations, a lot of private industry look to states of origin or location, wherever a company is headquartered. They look to that state as the stamp of approval or the legal certification of a business as small. So yes, I think it behooves you to get certification. It's like the lady, someone asked earlier that said they were qualified or certified as a woman-owned business by a private agency. That doesn't carry the universal credential that state government certification does. Of course, I'm a little bit biased, but I don't think I'm wrong in saying that. I don't.
So in essence, so all these questions about, I'm this kind of company, can I get certified? As long as you are a small business, by your definition, there isn't a restriction on the type of business. It's any type of business.
As I say, we prior to having this ESO certification for employment service organizations, you had to be a for-profit business and you had to engage in legal activity. And you have to be owned by either a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident. And then aside from that, the only qualification you need to meet is the size qualification. For small, less than 250 employees. For micro, 25 or fewer employees, and 3 million or less in average gross income averaged over 3 years. Those are the only qualifications. You don't need to worry. And people say, well, do you certify startup businesses? Every day we certify startup businesses. You don't have to have ever filed income tax returns. In fact, that's the best time to apply for certification. You have very little paperwork you have to submit.
Well, thank you all for being here today. We're going to take the questions that are left over and see if we can cull down some of them. Courtney, I'll get those to you and Allison. So thank you everyone for participating today.
I'm happy to answer questions, but I'm not going to write novels. Nope. So if you have extra questions, please call me. I prefer to talk on the phone. I'm not a big emailer.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it, and I hope you got something out of it.